The Chicago crowd were in for a treat on Saturday night when the Octagon rolled into town for UFC 319. In the co-main event, Manchester's own Lerone Murphy sent shockwaves through the featherweight division, stopping UFC debutant Aaron Pico in devastating fashion. And in the main event, Khamzat Chimaev finally realises UFC gold, dominating Dricus Du Plessis over 5 rounds to become the new UFC middleweight champion. Welcome to Fight Week on TNT Sports and Discovery Plus. This is your review of UFC 319. I'm Adam Catterall. It is a pleasure to be in your company, and it's a pleasure to be in the company of these two. First up, the Hawaiian shirt has gone. That's right, he's back in his normal abode, the one and only Mr. Nick Peet. And with Mr. Michael Bisping still being on his holidays, look who's back, the tank, Jack Shaw. How are you, sir? You good?
Very good. Still riding high from last night, so very good. Can't wait to get into it.
I thought you were going to say still riding high from that shirt that he was wearing a couple of weeks back when we did the preview, mate. Did you have a nice holiday, Nicholas?
I did. It was sensational, thank you. Yeah, I've put on about 3 stone, but, you know, that's what an all-inclusive is there for.
Fair play, mate. Fair play. Listen, let's get stuck into it, shall we? Because Chicago absolutely delivered. We've got stats galore coming out of our ears, and we might just be making some noise for the next British title contender in the UFC. We'll get to him in a bit. First and foremost, middleweights. We're in the main event with Khamzat Chimaev, now the champion at 185 pounds, taking a decision over 25 minutes against Dricus Du Plessis. Jack, on the preview, I said it's a fight of the year, potential fight of the year contender. It didn't necessarily live up to that, but we might have got one of the best performances from a challenger in a championship fight in recent times.
Yeah, you know, arguably the best performance from a challenger, especially recently. Everything we've come to expect from Khamzat Chimaev, totally neutralised a world-class fighter in Dricus Du Plessis. You know, world-class grappling and wrestling once again. Totally shut down the champion. You know, and also answered a lot of questions for me in the process. A lot of questions before the fight. What happens if he doesn't get the early finish? But the answer for this one would be he keeps going. He continues to do what he does. You know, it's become a very difficult thing for these guys now. Dricus was the man to stop the wrestling, but what do they kind of say now that the main guy of the division had the same problems everybody else has?
Listen, you're the main man to talk about the wrestling in a minute, mate, and the technicalities of what that guy was doing in the Octagon last night. It was absolutely sensational. But Jack's right, Nick. The doubts are no longer there. 25 minutes, he looked as fresh as a daisy when that fight finished.
Yeah, I was kind of waiting for Dricus to have his moment. You know, we've seen in the past Khamzat flatline, fail to push through the barrier and get a second wind in fights. And I was waiting for that to happen here, first time over 25 minutes. But Dricus really just couldn't do anything about Khamzat's game plan. And he just kind of rode his way to a rather comfortable, certainly the first 20-22 minutes, rather comfortable. There was a little bit of excitement down the stretch, which kind of got my pulse running a little bit. But other than that, it was round 1, take him down, hold him down, crucifix, tippy-tappies, rinse and repeat. Yeah, listen, it was a completely dominant performance by Khamzat Chimaev. And for anyone to do that to Dricus is incredibly impressive. Yeah. But I'm a Khamzat super fan. That was probably my least favourite Khamzat Chimaev performance, if that makes any sense.
Is that down to how good Dricus was, though, defensively, in order to stay in that fight for such a long period of time and not really present any opportunities? Or you were looking for more from Khamzat?
I think I'd like to get Jack's take on that for sure, but I personally wanted more from Khamzat. It was complete, utter dominance. He took him down in the opening 30 seconds of pretty much every round. When he was down there was no real submission attempts. There was no real prolonged ground and pound attempts. You know, when he got him in a crucifix so incredibly and comfortably, at no point did Khamzat change his position to really drop those elbows down, to make Marc Goddard have a decision to make. Instead, he kind of played safe, held the position, and pretended to throw strikes. He did it with knees up against the cage. He did it with, you know, little tippy-tappy punches when they were on the ground. He was just doing enough to stop Marc Goddard from standing them up, rather than fishing for a finish. Very un-Khamzat-like. And as I say, maybe Jack can give us a take on it. Maybe because it was like, right, this is the game plan. We're going to out-wrestle him. Don't try and do anything else. Don't care about the crowd going booing, going bananas. Doesn't matter. All that matters is we're here in Chicago, we're taking the belt home, and this is how we're going to do it. Very game plan, very disciplined, but not the most exciting performance for me.
Go on, Jack. What do you think?
I think two things to consider. The first thing, the caliber of the opponent he's in with. You know, the sheer size and strength of Dricus, I think, played a massive factor. You've only got to look at how well he defended and survived in those dominant positions in comparisons to the last couple of guys Khamzat has got in those positions. I mean, I don't know the official weights, but I would probably guess Dricus probably had a good 10 to 15 pounds onto Khamzat when he was in there. I know on camera they don't look a lot different size-wise, but in terms of density, Dricus is a much thicker guy, and I think would probably have a tougher cut at light heavyweight than what Khamzat had. And also, I think we've got to consider what we said in the pre-fight show, where we talked about those mental demons. You know, Khamzat has never done a 5-round fight, and it doesn't matter how many simulators you do in the gym, how many sparring sessions you do in the gym, until you've done it under the lights, you don't actually know, how you're going to cope when you hit that 4th and 5th round. So I think a factor to consider is it's going well, but it's gone well for 3 rounds before, and I've been very tight at the end of those 3 rounds. Let's keep doing what I'm doing. Let's keep the position, and let's not get carried away and live to regret it in those later stages of the fight.
Before we carry on talking Khamzat, let's just tip the old cap to Dricus Du Plessis, Nick, as he walked out for that 5th round. He knows that he's got his backside whooped for 20 minutes. The attitude and the determination to try and do something to flip this fight on its head. That's what champions are all about.
Yeah, and you've got to bear in mind, no one's ever done that to Dricus before. Dricus has been a champion on multiple continents before he even came to the UFC, and now he's in the UFC. Everyone's finally starting to appreciate his fighting style. He's finally got, the props that he deserves on the pound-for-pound list and everything else, and he's looked utterly dominant against former champions in this weight division. And then Khamzat comes along and shows him something that I would argue he's never contested against that high level of wrestling before. The way, as Jack explained, pieces it all together, chains it all together. That gives Dricus something to go away and work on. And it's heavy as the crown. When you become a champion in this organisation, remember, this is not boxing where there's multiple world champions. There is only one king in each weight class. And as soon as you get that crown on your head, you've got basically dozens of other guys who have all put that target on you, are in the gym every day training to beat you. And that does make it difficult. But I think he's come across a guy in Khamzat that has got a wrestling, all-encompassing wrestling style that he's not faced before, something he's going to have to go away and work on. But you will see Dricus bounce back 100%, because Jack touched on it there about the weight discrepancy. Khamzat weighed in at 183.
Yeah.
He was well inside, which for me means he probably didn't do a weight cut, which means that there's still scope for Khamzat to go down to 170. And listen, I'm going to get carried away, but there's this potential super fight with Islam down there, because he can't do that to Islam Makhachev. But right now, I want to appreciate the fact that Khamzat has finally reached the summit. He's finally become the king that we all thought he was going to be a few years ago prior to COVID. The performance, I just want to park that for now, because he's much more than what we got last night. Last night, he did a job. I'm looking forward to seeing Khamzat doing Khamzat next time out.
Well, we said, didn't we, that he has absolutely changed his attitude towards the game. I think he was cutting a lot of corners, building into some of the previous fights where he did have those weight issues. And as you, Nick, pointed out on the preview show, COVID did take its toll on him. Hopefully he's over the back end of that. His attitude's absolutely bang on. He's been obviously training with Arman Saruki. We also saw that in the previews. And it's showing. His performance, although it being quick against Robert Whittaker, was bang on. And his performance against Dricus Du Plessis was top class over 25 minutes. Just a quick one on the officiating. Only 1:10.8 in there, Nick. I know that you like to get stuck into the criteria, my man. Only 1:10.8. All the judges were agreed that round 3 was that 10-8. What do you think?
I kind of agree with it, because there wasn't a lot of damage, and we're being told now the ABC have changed the scoring rules that it is about damage. The problem is, the most important facet of mixed martial arts, the most important martial art to master, is wrestling, because wrestling means you control the geography of the fight. So that's the most important thing. It's also the most boring element of mixed martial arts. There's a reason why people don't watch wrestling at college level, at Olympic level, because it's boring. Unless you're into wrestling, nobody watches it. It's the striking side, it's the submission side of the game, it's the finishing side of the game. Why mixed martial arts is the biggest sport on the planet, most exciting sport to watch on the planet. Certainly not the wrestling. And I just think Khamzat needs to review that performance, Go back to being the finisher. Go back for looking to finish fights. We've got guys in the UFC that are heavy wrestlers that are far more entertaining than what we saw last night. Merab, for one. Merab's a fan favourite because of the way he wrestles. Khamzat Chimaev's a fan favourite because of the way he finishes fights. Last night, we got a very professional, diluted version of what Khamzat's capable of. I want to see more. I want to see more from the champion.
Mate, he's just near enough ragdoll Dricus Du Plessis, right? Who's been undefeated in the UFC. Nobody's been able to beat the guy. He's been taking out the top news, and he's ragdolled him and controlled him for 21 minutes.
Yeah. But were you entertained? Were you entertained for 25 minutes? I say no. I wasn't.
He's gone full Russell Crowe gladiator. He wants absolute death. He wants that.
Listen, I was treated to 2 back spinning elbows in the run up to this thing.
You were spoiled. You were spoiled.
Exactly. That was the problem. I just wanted Khamzat to put the cherry on the cake, and I think he denied himself that viral moment when I think he could have put his foot down and looked to get a signature finish.
Something tells me, Jack, that when Mark Goddard stood these guys up on a couple of occasions, he was in his living room cheering. He was cheering. Get up, man. Let's have a scrap.
I can picture Nick there with his top off when Goddard stood him up, screaming for blood, screaming for more.
Listen, I know that obviously caused a bit of a conversation on social media regarding what Mark was doing there. The fight was not progressing. It was not advancing. He held him in a controlled position. He was dominant in that position and he was being active, but that's not enough to advance the fight. Mark Goddard was right to do what he did in those moments in order to try and advance the fight, but within 10 seconds, he took him back down and we were back in the same position, weren't we?
Yeah.
What comes next? There were a few middleweights in attendance there. Jack, obviously Kyle Borrallo, who weighed in. This is going to be really interesting to see how that weight cut for him as the backup fighter affects what he's going to be doing in Paris in 3 weeks' time. We've seen fighters do this and it does affect their performance, so that's going to be interesting. Taking on Nasruddin Imavov. And RDR, Renier Derrida, was also in attendance. Can any of those unpick the Khamzat Chimaev puzzle?
I mean, stylistically, I would have argued that the Dricus is stylistically the toughest fight and opposes a lot bigger threat than those guys. But there's also a lot of moving parts. You know, as you said, Borrallo is fighting Imavov now in September. Dana White's already talking of Khamzat fighting in Abu Dhabi, which I believe is middle of October. So it just feels like that may be too quick of a turnaround. I feel like then we jump to RDR or Anthony Hernandez. And also we got Sean Strickland lurking a little bit, who's waiting for a fight. And I just got a feeling we may see Hernandez coming off our big win last week, get the shot. I feel like RDR may need one more. I feel like a fight against Strickland would really sort of help him leap over everyone else in the division. But if Khamzat wants to be active and he wants to fight in Abu Dhabi, ultimately someone's got to be there ready to take the fight. And I feel like we may see Fluffy be that guy. That's just the gut feeling I've got on it.
Could we even see Kamaru Usman jump back up to 185 after all last time we were in Abu Dhabi, or last time Khamzat was, Kamaru Usman pushed him strong, and if there was a 4th round that night, I think Khamzat would have lost.
Yeah, there's a shout for that, I think there is a shout for that. So it will be interesting, though, Nick, if they do take him to Abu Dhabi, because I think they're starting to fully appreciate the just how big Khamzat can be. I don't know how it popped in Chicago this week. We weren't on the ground, but when we've been in Abu Dhabi with him, it is Khamzat territory, isn't it?
Oh, he's a superstar, an absolute superstar. And listen, and don't get me wrong, I'm talking about a guy that prior to last night had 14 fights with 12 finishes, half submissions and half knockouts. His hands are fantastic. He has got a real strong submission game. Maybe I'm not giving enough props to Dricus in the way he defended. I just think last night we got a very watered down, professional performance from Khamzat. One maybe I didn't think he was capable of. I thought he was more of a loose cannon than that. I thought he was more of a Bond villain than that. Whereas last night, he fought to instructions. I can't wait to see him go back to what he really does, and that's smash, baby. Because he never smashed anyone last night. I want to see the smash bros back.
You are that guy, aren't you? With the Just Bleed. Definitely.
Hey, I love violence. That's why I watch this sport. I want violence.
Well, all in all, a fantastic performance from Mr. Chimaev, who is the new middleweight king. Would you go along with that, Jack, that he is now? I know that Dana mentioned this in the post interviews, that he believes that Khamzat could be now the biggest star in the UFC.
Absolutely. 100%. I think he's top 5 biggest names in UFC. If he's going to do what he says he's going to do, drop down for the belt, go up for the belt, defend the middleweight belt and be active, there's no reason why he can't become the biggest name in the sport. He has got that aura about him. He is very much good at playing the villain. He's the scary Russian that no one wants to fight and everyone's afraid to get in there and challenge. A good 12 to 18 months of activity and him jumping through a couple of weight classes, I think we're talking a totally different kettle of fish again.
All aboard. The Khamzat train has left the station. Some performance, that. Congratulations to him, and I've no doubt that Dricus Du Plessis will be back as well. If you missed any of this, by the way, the Discovery Plus app is available for you now. You can flip between the fights. Just ignore what Nick Peet said. It was a solid performance from
Watch
Khamzat.
round 1 and round 5. That's all you need to watch.
Anyway, you can go and check it all out on the Discovery Plus app, so go and get stuck in. One thing that you definitely will be checking out, and Nicky's going to be 100% super positive about this, is the finish that Lerone Murphy delivered on Aaron Pico. Your all weight division, Jack. These two guys, obviously, the pre-talk was all about being a number 1 contenders fight with Movsar Evloev being out of this co-main event. Lerone steps up on 3 weeks' notice, and boy, did he deliver.
Didn't he just? This is insane to say because of the fact he's 17-0, but it almost feels like it was Lerone's breakout performance. Pico, all the accolades, the big name coming over from a different league, and started strong, landed some big shots, a few takedowns, but as we said, Lerone's great at following instruction, very hard to keep down, moves well. It was around about the midpoint of the round, you could see him start to really dial in on that timing, landing some great shots, some great counters, and the final blow, the spinning elbow, there was so much that went into that to make that read. Absolutely incredible and absolutely world class. That's not just something you can fluke and pull off. For someone to do that to a guy like Aaron Pico truly shows the level and the class that Lerone is at. And for me, give him Volkanovski next.
I want to delve into what you've just said there about the technicalities of what he was doing in a minute, Jack, but you've known him a bit, Nick. The lad's story has been, well, it's a movie within itself, and for him to have that moment in Chicago was something else for him.
Yeah, and it's the story, it's the journey, it's the fact that he's cheated death on various occasions during his young life, that he truly believes he's destined to achieve something quite special. And I think that, with the technical ability as well, is putting Lerone Murphy in a completely different headspace. Like, he's calling out Volk legitimately. Like, I'm the guy. He's stepping in to replace Movsar Evloev against a really dangerous UFC debutant. And he's doing it at 3 weeks' notice because he knows where he's at. He's peaking right now as an athlete. Yes, I thought Pico started brilliantly, but it wasn't anything that Lerone and the team weren't ready for. And once he got his timing right, you could see. Once he started throwing those elbows and throwing those knees on the inside and starting to connect with Pico, you were thinking, these have read Pico like a book. They're going to use Pico's momentum against him. And then suddenly, boom, you blink, and there's that spinning elbow. All that forward drive, that momentum, that passion, that aggression from Pico completely and utterly blows up in his face because the timing of that spinning elbow, the momentum of him crashing into that elbow, and he's knocked out cold. This was the moment. This was a big opportunity for Lerone. Co-main event, American pay-per-view, huge numbered event, stepping in at 3 weeks' notice to race the guy Movsar Evloev that's got this unbeaten record that everyone's saying needs to be the next guy in queue. Well, guess what? Movsar, you're yesterday's news, pal. There's only one guy now standing in front of the champion. His name is Lerone Murphy. And I'm glad to see Volk hit social media straight afterwards and like, Lerone Murphy, congrats. Let's go in December. Done. You don't need anything else. We're going to Vegas in December.
I knew that was coming. I knew that is where you would take him on a little trip to Vegas for December. Listen, Jack, the technicalities of what Lerone delivered in that fight, talk us through it, the triggers that he's looking for, because it wasn't his style of fight, that 2-3 minutes that we had. He was being pushed back, a lot of aggression from Aaron Pico. What type of triggers is he looking for in order to get that type of shot off?
I'd love to chat to his coach about what they actually seen in the build-up, because to me, it looked like almost early on, Lerone kept himself reserved to just see how Pico was moving and how he was setting things up. And he did have a little bit of success early on, Pico, but eventually that was his downfall. Lerone's so good at reading the fight and reading his opponent's movements. After that success, you could see Pico, there's no shot. He loves the left hook. A lot of his knockouts have been with that left hook power shot. And early on, he was moving well. Moving to the left, loading the left hook. As the fight went on, though, he started to hold his feet a little bit more, and that was when we seen Lerone get the read, start landing those elbows and those knees, and then the final shot was incredible. I mean, I probably watched it 100 times this afternoon, slowing it down, and you see Pico really thinks he's going to load up on this. So he steps out to the right, but perfect read from the lens. He steps out to the right to load up that left up. He just moves that front foot outside of Pico's and bang, like Nick said, like a car crash. Just let him lead all that weight in, walked him straight onto that spinning elbow. There was no luck at all with our elbow. That was not a fluke. That wasn't just something he threw and it landed. I would be very surprised if they didn't drill that in the warm-up room, if they didn't drill that in the gym the last 3 weeks. It was clear that was set up. He made the read and did it perfectly because, it couldn't have landed any better. And look at the reaction afterwards. Like we said, Volkanovski straight on Twitter. Come on, let's do it. Let's do it in Vegas. So exactly why Lerone took the risk, fighting an unranked guy and fighting him at 3 weeks' notice as well.
Listen, he's been beating good guys, but they've been going the distance. And obviously, as this show's panning out, we're learning that Nick Peet likes the violence. He needed a moment, didn't he, Nick? He needed a moment, that viral moment that lives in people's phones as they get up this morning and go, oh my days. That was the moment.
Of course. Listen, he's 18-0 now, which is phenomenal, especially when you bear in mind that the last 10 have been, or he's 18 fights undefeated, I should say. There's one draw in there, which wasn't a draw, I was there. But the last 10 fights have all been in the UFC. The last few at the highest level in the UFC against, big names at the apex, main events. But you're right. They were points decisions. The one thing lacking from Lerone's game was a viral moment finish to rubber stamp him, to step ahead of Movsar Evloev, who has also got an unbeaten record, but is also known for beating everybody on points. He had to differentiate himself from that guy. Right, I'll step in to replace him. And I'd love to speak to Carl Prince and the team and to Lerone himself. Did they take that opportunity because they thought Adam Pico was made for us? Balling forward like that, thinks he, chains wrestling together with his striking, but as Jack says, gets carried away, throwing big shots to the body, leaves his chin exposed, leaves himself wide open. We've seen something in that actual opponent in particular that we believe leads to a viral moment finish that rubber stamps our contendership status. I would argue they probably did. They probably looked at Pico and thought, made for us, we'll have it. We'll have it at 3 weeks. And as Jack said, it's completely paid off now. The champ has called Lerone out. And what the champ wants, the champ gets. And when it was mentioned to Dana White in the press conference afterwards, he said, Volk's called Lerone out. Is that what we're going to do next? Dana went, that'll do for me. Perfect. Matchmaking done in-house.
And if one spinning elbow wasn't enough, let's serve up two. The Windy City, Cyclone City we're going to call it now, Spinning Elbow City, whatever you want to call it, it was on point because Lerone's obviously done one in the co-main. Just before him, Carlos Prates did the business as well on Jeff Neal. Unbelievable performance from the Brazilian, Jack.
Look, I mean, it was everything we expected it to be. Both guys met in the middle. They had their exchanges, and Neal looked pretty decent early on. He was landing some shots, but within a minute or two, you could just see the technique difference, the power difference. Pratas with his shot variety was incredible. Low kicks, high kicks, spin kicks, knees, elbows, and you could see the toll that his shots were actually taking on Jeff Neal. Damaged his eye, was rocking him multiple times throughout the round, and then just proved why he should be called the Nightmare when he lands that buzzer beater spinning elbow to top off a world-class performance.
So accurate, the shots that he was throwing, Nick. Unbelievable. It was, as Jack just said there, Jeff, a lot of front foot pressure, throwing big bombs. Not a lot of it landing, a little bit here, there and everywhere, but the sniper precision from Prates as he got into the rhythm of the fight after about 2 minutes was just top class.
I expected a response from Carlos Prates after losing to Ian Gary last time out. I really did expect to see something a bit special. But I also, I even drew the comparison in the preview show. I said Jeff Neal, pushed Ian Gary to a split decision, whereas Ian Gary was convincing against Carlos Prates. And let's do the MMA maths here. And it just goes to show MMA maths means absolutely nothing, because these guys just look like completely different skill levels. And I'm watching thinking, how did Jeff Neal push Ian Gary to a split decision, in all honesty? Because Carlos Prates made him look like a novice for me. He was just balling forward. He was looking more out of desperation, trying to land something, and he just made the job easy for Carlos Prates. Once he found his rage, picked him off at will, set it up, And then in true fighting nerd style, just got that absolutely incredible spinning back elbow knockout, buzzer beater, right on 1 second to go in that opening round. Sensational stuff.
Yeah. What comes next? Well, if we listen to Carlos Prates, Leon Edwards comes next, Mr. Shaw. What do you make of that fight?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great fight. If I'm a fighter in the welterweight division, I'm not jumping at the bit at the minute to jump in there and fight Carlos after a win like that. Leon obviously is a lot more dangerous everywhere, a lot more well-skilled than Jeff Neal. Not that's a knock on Jeff Neal, that's just the reality of the situation. But we also got to factor in Leon's coming off 2 losses, and Carlos is riding the wave of a big finish. I'm all the way in. Another fight I'd love to see would be him against MVP. That's one we can talk about a little bit later as well. But there's so many exciting fights. If they match Carlos right again, we could have another big star and a big household name on our hands, because he's a complete package. He looks the part. You can sell him well. He smokes a cigarette and he's taking shots of whiskey, in the post-fight presser. But he delivers as well. When it comes to the fight night, he does deliver. He had that little slip up against Ian Gary, but other than that, he's been pretty much picture perfect since he signed with the UFC.
Yeah. He made Ian Gary wrestle that night as well, if you remember. Ian Gary, went in there, as he does, with a perfect game plan to nullify him. I understand why he's calling out Leon, because Leon will strike with him, and that would suit Prates and would allow him to push forward as well, Leon being more of a counter-striker. So it's a great call-out if he gets that opportunity. I also think it's a fight that suits Leon Edwards as well.
Listen, I think he's had a great night, Carlos Prates. Obviously delivers the moment, and then he rocks the microphone. One with the call-out for Leon. He tried to get his mate a job in the UFC, which is always a winner. And then he just told Dana that it was his birthday so he could get 50k. Winner! That's how you got to do it, guys. Tell him it's your birthday so you can go for a bit of a celebration. I've no doubt the party with the fighting nerds was a little bit full on after the shenanigans on Saturday evening. And I've no doubt the party for Michael Venom Page, the middleweight, is maybe still flowing right now. I know that you just flirted with the idea of him maybe coming back down to welterweight, Jack, but at middleweight, he's looked absolutely fantastic. And for 10 minutes before he made a slight error in the 3rd round, Jared Cannonier couldn't live with him.
We talked about it, didn't we, in the pre-show? If Jared doesn't mix things up and just plods forward like he does, he was going to have a nightmare. And as you said, for 11 minutes, he did. He couldn't land a glove. MVP pretty much did what he wanted. And one thing that stood out to me was how well he defended the takedowns as well. He did a real good job of keeping the under up, moving his back off the cage. The only time yet that the mat was through a mistake of his own. So a real great performance again from MVP. And I like him at this weight. For me, if I was him, I'm staying up at 185. I think there's a lot more better matches for him stylistically. Not so many grapplers in the division. And I'm making a serious thought about staying there and making a run for that title.
And Jack's right to point that out, Nick, because come Tuesday morning, this guy could be ranked in both weight divisions. He's got the choice of 170 and 185. I personally, like Jack said there, looks really good at 185. He's also got that star factor. He got some serious pop in Chicago. They were chanting his name. They were loving him.
Yeah, because he's got a style that's kind on the eye, isn't he? He's made for TV, because Joe Rogan pointed out these point fighting karate guys, kickboxing guys, they're so unique visually. Obviously, Wonder Boy's in there as well, but nobody fights like him. And that's what makes it so fascinating, because you're seeing something completely different. The hands completely down by his side, just bouncing in on the balls of his feet, looking to throw power shots and land power shots. And he did that in both the 1st and 2nd round here, which obviously solidified those rounds for him. Yes, the output isn't maybe as high as a crazy marauder type fighter, but for me, I think it's absolutely fascinating, and it must be horrific to fight somebody like that, because Cannonier's no joke. We're talking to a former title contender here, a guy that knows, okay, he's potentially in the back end of his career, but that knowing Cannonier well enough to know the way he lives his life, very holistic lifestyle, he'll be trying to rinse every single ounce of his career before he can't do it anymore. So I know he would have been prepared. I know he would have been dialed in, but it must be so frustrating, because you can't get a sparring partner to replicate what MVP does. There isn't many guys that stand 6'3", walking the planet, that can move their body in the way that he does. He's so quick. And Cannonier's only success was when MVP got a little bit greedy in the 3rd round, tried to land a big Superman punch, missed, and his own momentum caused him to fall over, which allowed Cannonier to have some success in round number 3. But up until that point, it was 10 minutes of vintage MVP. When Cannonier got him in the clinch, didn't do anything with it. And I think you boys are right. MVP at 185 could make a real run. And he'll make it quick because fans love him.
October, Abu Dhabi, Khamzat Chimaev. What do you reckon, Jack? Let's do it, man. Come on. We're on the British hype train today, pal. Let's just make it happen.
Do you dislike MVP or something, Ad? Is that what it is?
I'm just getting him a title shot, that's all, mate. Let's get him in there. Come on.
Look, as Nick said, he will get a title shot quick. He's only probably, 2 wins away because of how big a star he is. But again, there's no need to rush him, I don't think, at this weight. I think take another fight, maybe a guy ranked in the top 5, and then put his name in the hat. He's building that momentum again. Now he's coming off 2 real good wins in the division. One more helps him find his feet, gets used to dealing with the bigger guys, and also gets him used to sort of having that speed advantage, because he's fast at welterweight, but you watch him against these middleweights, they're almost a step behind him.
Exactly.
So I think he needs to just continue at this weight, get used to dancing around and landing shots on these bigger guys. Because one thing I wanted to add as well, he looked a lot more powerful, I thought. He's always been, obviously had that snap in his shots, but to put Jared Cannonier down twice is a big feat, especially as a welterweight coming up. So maybe that, not draining himself for the weight cut, staying closer to his natural weight, is benefit him in terms of power as well. It certainly looked that way on Saturday night.
I'm looking forward to the AI memes of someone throwing a basketball into all that stuff that he was doing during the fight or whatever it may be. Somebody's going to create something on social media, aren't they? I won't be surprised if it's already out there. Congratulations to Michael getting the job done against Jared Cannonier. Kicking off the main card, it was Tim Elliott, who had been out of the octagon since December of 2023, taking on Kaya Sakura, and he came through with a second round submission victory. Bit of a weird fight to watch at times, Jack, I'll be honest with you, mainly because Tim Elliott's got a herky-jerky type of style, but he's a vet, he's been here a long time, and he got the job done, mate.
He does what those veterans do. They have a real good habit of spoiling the party, as we say. Asakura looked good early on. He had some success, but a guy like Elliott, he's so unorthodox and so awkward that it just looked like he almost had Asakura confused at some points in the fight, where he was like, what's going on in front of me? And the minute he got that wrestling going, the minute he landed that first takedown, you instantly seen Asakura shell up and become a lot more defensive. His output slowed, and he got the job done. You can't get taken down by a guy of Tim Elliott's level and just try and do a basic stand-up and give up your neck. He's going to take it every time, and he's going to get the finish. Yeah.
Jack's just pointed out, I think, the key moment at the end of the first round there. Once there was that grappling and wrestling exchange, that you could just tell that Kaya Sakura was second-guessing himself then, and therefore didn't really want to fully exchange with him.
Which is crazy, because he dominated the first round for four and a half minutes. And yet he goes back to his corner. We didn't get to hear what got said in that corner. But whatever they said, they never snapped them out of it. They never brought them back. Right, okay, you had a bad last 30 seconds, but the round's in the bank. Don't worry about it. Let's go back to what we were doing at the start of the round. Because he come out a shell of the man that dominated round number 1. The flip side of that, we did hear the Tim Elliott corner. I thought they were sensational, by the way. Calmed him right down, controlled his breathing, give him a little drink, settled him. Right, this is what we're going to do now. We're going to plant our feet, we're going to do X, Y, and Z, and he goes out there and executes it. And this is why the UFC is such an incredible platform to watch fight sports in, because someone's a veteran here, a guy that's been in this sport for 13 years, been at the highest level. Last year, or 18 months ago, we seen him lose against a young, up-and-coming star, and you kind of think maybe that's the end of him now. And yeah, here he is, standing in front of the next big Japanese star, coming off the back of a title loss himself, and you're thinking he's being set up for Asakura to get a win in the UFC. And what does Tim Elliott do? He comes in and produces a performance like that. Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, great way to kick off the main card. And that kind of was set up with the featured prelim. We'll get stuck into the prelim, shall we, boys? Because what a week for Baizanga Susurkev. Apologies if I pronounced that incorrectly, because he's relatively new to the UFC. He had his debut in Chicago on Saturday night, 3 days after he turned up at Dana White's Contender Series. And there were a bit of rock'em sock'em robots in that first round, mate. It didn't nearly go his way, Jack, but he turned it round in the second to get the job done.
Yeah, look, he's had the roller coaster week that no one really wants, but everyone kind of really wants. It was set to be a fairy tale, like you said, got his contract off Dana on Tuesday, looking to turn it around within 4 days, take his mate Khamzat's record for the quickest turnaround between wins. It was the fairy tale, but we nearly didn't get the fairy tale ending. Nolan had other ideas, rocked him bad the last 10 seconds of the opening round, had him on skates. But he did a real good job recovering between rounds, came out, got right back to work, and did what he's good at. You know, he didn't involve himself anymore in the wild exchanges, got the takedown, utilised the ground and pound, and got the finish. But a real good prospect for me. You know, looks to be the part in every area. Still got a little bit of work to do, but he keeps moving in the direction and fighting like that. It'll be interesting to see where he ends up.
Mate, and a little tip of the cap to Eric Nolan as well, who, up in weight on short notice, gave a real good account of himself, and I've no doubt that he'll be back in the UFC in his own weight category, putting in some sensational performances. This is where Nick Peet gets to show off a little bit, because he did tell us on the prelims which one to look out for, and it's another A. Hernandez doing the job, this time Alexander, Nick.
Alexander the Great, as his moniker says. Do you know, there's something about this kid. I think his UFC record now is like 7-7. He's been around for a minute, but I tell you what, I always remember, because he knocked out Beneil Dariush on his UFC debut, so he's always kind of stuck in me head. And yes, he wins as many as he loses and everything else, but coming into this fight, got Chase Hooper in the form of his life. 5 UFC wins, couple of legends on there last time out, Clay Guida, Jim Miller. Coming into this with a lot of confidence, UFC setting him up with Hernandez, as I say, can kind of blow hot and cold, but I always just fancied Hernandez to have the belief in that power. Chase still a little bit light on the whiskers, and boy did he land it. Massive big right hand, right on the hooter at the end. We had a few buzzer beaters on Saturday night, didn't we?
Yeah.
But right at the end of that opening round, sensational knockout for Hernandez. And yeah, listen, the comment section may say one thing, but I stand by it. I do know a little bit about this sport, everybody.
Well done you, mate. Well done you. Just a little bit of a mention as well for Mikhail Oleksiejczuk. Another first-round knockout victory. Only 2 men in UFC history have more first-round knockouts than him. Nick, you're a historian. Go on, what have you got? Can you think of any first-round knockout merchants from back in the day?
Back in the day. Chuck Liddell? He had a couple back in the day.
Not Chuck, but you're in the right era. It is. Vito's got the most amount with 11 first-round knockout victories inside the UFC. And Rumble Johnson.
I was going to say Rumble Johnson.
Oh, Jack, I should have come to you. I should have come to you, mate. I apologise, but it was Rumble.
Rumble, R.I.P. Legend.
There you go. But Mikhail Oleksiejczuk now with 8 first-round UFC knockouts. He's now number 3 on the list. So congratulations to him. He was on the prelim. So you can go and check all that out on the Discovery Plus app. Jack, thank you very much for your time, mate. Much appreciated getting stuck in on the preview and the review. Obviously, we've already booked the trip to Japan when that gets sorted, mate. And now we'll get you out to Abu Dhabi, seeing he's been making fights there as well. That work for you, pal?
Works for me. Beautiful, lad. Pleasure to be on, as always. And great night of fights. Can't wait for the next one.
Top man. Well, that next one is coming up in October. There's no numbered card in September. October first week, it's October the 4th, if my memory serves me right, where Magomed Ankalaev and Merab Dvalishvili will be defending their crowns. So make sure you come back and join us for the preview of that. But for now, that's a wrap on UFC 319. Lerone Murphy makes his case for a title shot at featherweight champ Alexander Volkanovski, demolishing UFC debutant Aaron Pico in spectacular fashion. And the Boers era begins as Khamzat Chimaev finally realises UFC gold, dominating Dricus Du Plessis over 5 rounds to take on the UFC middleweight championship. We'll catch you next time.